Hey guys, WantClue here. I hope all of you are doing really well and having a really good day. It is finally time. We are releasing the next update for your Bitaxe. We do release the version 2.6.1. Some of you might wonder, well, what happened to the version 2.6.0? It was a little bit of a quick release and we reverted it in order to make sure that we do perform the best update for you as possible and with as much features and it's as much stability as possible for you. So with that, I want to dive directly into all the changes because the list is very long, as you do see, and I want to make sure that you guys get what this update is and what is packed into it. So the first thing is SPI RAM available by E. Anderson. This is basically a fix for an issue that we had with a couple of Bitaxes out there that are using the wrong ESP32S3 model, and with this we are able to check if they actually do have SPI RAM available or not. The next update is keep all pool configs synchronized until reboot. This actually means that if you do change your pool configuration, it does not change automatically. You need to reboot the device in order not to drop off your connection that you do have and use the new one straight up, because this could sometimes lead to some issues. The next fix that we do have is a little bit of mock data in the theme service by MRV777. Thanks for doing that, because with that it's a little bit easier to actually develop on the front end and the UI. There's another fix, a color swarm IPs by model or count. So now your swarm will actually have colors for your different devices and they will also be sorted. The next one is a show IP of Bitaxe. You are restarting on swarm, which is now also great. Now you do see which specific IP address you are actually restarting. The next one is a refactor. The recovery page had a little bit of an issue and is now in an embedded file into the system. We also reworked the menu and added a new design to it. There's also now a rework on the pool menu, and this is to give you guys a little bit clear of a view what's going on in which specific menu you need to go. The next one is enabling unit tests in the CI section by E. Anderson, as well as don't allow 0000 in cores by E. Anderson as well, which is awesome because this allows or denies devices that are not from the internal network to access your device. There is another great fix and a support for the extra nonce 2_lang lower than 4 by Adam West, which improves the performance overall. There's also a reduction in the invalid job founding log from error to warning by E. Anderson. So now when you do have some errors or warning, it will be reduced and it will not scatter all around in your logs. There's also an update of the Angular framework. We do utilize the Angular framework for the front end and it has been updated. We also do have now the Grandma Knows What Wi-Fi Means fix by B-Ron. Thanks for doing that. With that, we try to introduce a little bit more clearer instructions and wording for all these different things that we do have. Some of you are not known to the word SSID, and therefore we changed on most ends all the stuff over to Wi-Fi. Another cool feature is the SSID Wi-Fi lookup, which has been introduced by me, which is a feature that allows you to search for local networks. Instead of you now needing to remember the Wi-Fi name, you can actually just press one little button and it will automatically scan networks that are near to your location. There's also a Wi-Fi setup text speed, which there's also a fix for the Wi-Fi setup text speed. So this has been changed on the display as well. It's a little bit slower now. So now you can actually read what is going on your screen. There's also another fix for the Wi-Fi spelling. So you do see spelling was something that is really important in this update for us to actually give you guys as much as a clear instruction as possible. And with Wi-Fi we are going ahead. We do have a little fix by me. The scan was a little bit messed up in my previous pull request and I fixed it right away. We also have a bug fix from Luke Jr., which is submit shares that are exactly equal or the target number when rounded to a div by Luke Jr. This fixes the issue that only if you found a share that is larger than the current needed difficulty, your Bitaxe would actually show you that you found a block. But what should be in there is equal or larger, and now this has been fixed. There's also a little bit of an improvement when it comes to the pool fallback code by E. Anderson, which is awesome. So now the fallback is even working better. There's also an update on confusing connecting to pool log messages by E. Anderson as well. So with that, you shouldn't have any issues when you do connect to as many pools as possible. There are also more Wi-Fi spelling fixes by Mutatrum in here, which is awesome. Another great thing here is that we do see the first support for the next Bitaxe, the Bitaxe Gamma Turbo, which will utilize 2 chips, and we do have a little bit of hardware abstraction in this code already, so you do see it is not long till we do see the next model. We also have a little bit of a fix when it comes to the UI. There are display placeholders for unavailable ASIC temperatures. So now instead of showing you nothing, it will show you dash dash. The init XOS AP mode has been introduced by Dustin B, which is awesome. So now when you do set up your Bitaxe for the very first time, you do get yourself a Bitaxe from your reseller that you do trust. And now instead of you needing to navigate through all these menus, it will actually show you right away the menu where you need to put in your Wi-Fi SSID or scan for a Wi-Fi network close to you and put in your Wi-Fi password. There's also now this don't show what -1 temperature on screen by Mutatrum. So now if your Bitaxe boots up, sometimes it was showing you -1 as a temperature, and then after like 5 seconds, it was actually able to show you the accurate temperature of the chip. Now this has been fixed and is no longer being presented on the screen. There is also Restore Max support. With this update, the Bitaxe Max, the original device that got out there, is now working again. The previous update had a couple of issues, and with that fix, this should be resolved. There is also another fix when it comes to the soft AP, so the access point mode. When there is not a valid model, it shouldn't be able to do some stuff, and we do see disable soft AP even if you don't have a valid model by Anderson, which is now been fixed. Previously, if you had some issues with the model or the model was wrong in general, it wouldn't allow you to actually remove or disable the soft AP mode. Now you're able to do so. There's also a removal from undefined method headers by Mutatrum, which is awesome. So now you no longer have some junk around that we don't need. Most of the things that I explained so far are in the backend, but I will show you the front end as well very, very shortly, so that you do see what the new model looks like. The new update will have a difference when it comes to the style. There's also a fix when it comes to the average hash rate, so they have been moved a little bit and are now present on a different location. There are also now tooltips on a couple of buttons and selectors, so that you can hover over them and that you can actually see what is going on there, which has been introduced by me in another pull request. I added the Pro Mode button, which was basically a feature to overclock your device very easily, but we decided to remove it and stepped away from it. So now we're utilizing a different version of that. It's a little bit different, but I will show you all these things in just a second. There's also now a new unlock for the OC, which has been introduced by me, as well as an update when it comes to the README files and removal of hard-coded stuff in places where it shouldn't be. So you do see plenty of these changes that we do have here are not just improvements. Some of them are removal of old code that we no longer use, or remove it with a little bit more flexible code that is adapting to new things. There was an issue when you tried to upgrade your dashboard that there was some sort of a stack overflow, which has been reduced or eliminated by E. Anderson in this fix as well. There's also now a show firmware updates on the display by Mutatrum, which is awesome. So now if you do an update on your device, it will show you the progress bar on how far the firmware update has been gone, which is a nice little feature. There's also a trim when it comes to the SSID, so the Wi-Fi name in the spaces, which is nice and handy to have when it comes to programming. There is now a new feature introduced into Swarm, which is an automatically sorting the Swarm page for the hostname and the IP address. What we also have is now a show, share, reject reason by Mutatrum, which is a lovely feature. I really thank you for doing that. It allows you to see why your share got rejected. It's no longer just, well, you have 15 shares rejected. Now you do see why they have been rejected. There's also a fix from me that I'm exposing a little bit more data to the API of the Bitaxe, so now you do have the current as well available. We do have a little bit of removal when it comes to the tests and workarounds by QEMU by E. Anderson. So this is nice. We no longer need this workaround. So with this version or with this release, we actually remove it and fix it in that way. There's also a new feature, which is the frequency transition. This was a major thing. Now, basically all of the Bitaxe models, except for the Bitaxe Max, are capable of live changing their frequency. So you can now live choose a different version or a different frequency for your ASIC as well for the voltage, and it will live adapt to that. We also do have a revert when it comes to the refactor of the Stratum code because there was another bug found in it and E. Anderson needed to revert that. There's also a verified chip ID response from Mutatrum, so now we actually not just ask, is there any chip? We're trying to check if the chip has an ID, and if it does have an ID, we can certainly say this chip is valid and this chip can actually hash. Hopefully, that's the idea behind it. We also do have a fix when it comes to the new overclock feature, which I will show you. There was an issue when it comes to the URL, which now has been fixed. I also fixed on this end the URL again because there were a couple of parameters, and this has been introduced as well. As well as we do have a swap when it comes to the www and ESP-miner update button. So originally you do have the ESP-miner.binary file on the left side, the button to upgrade it, and the website or the front end on the right hand side. I swapped them, so now hopefully you do think it is needed to update the front end before you update the back end, which is the case, and that's the reason why we did it. There's also a fix when it comes to the ports over everything to Bitaxe.org. So with this release, we moved the location of the code. We are no longer sitting on the repository from Scott, but now we moved over to the Bitaxe.org, which is an organization on GitHub where most of the projects that are in this community are now stored in. We also do have a fix when it comes to the API. Originally, if you sent over some null values to it, there was an issue with it, and now this has been fixed, which is awesome. There is a great new feature from Scott that has been implemented in this release as well for the TPS 546, which is the buck converter that converts the 5 volts input down to 1.2 volts for the ASIC chip to use. He introduced basically alerts to it. So now we can actually see what's going on with this chip and does it have any issues. For example, is the voltage coming into the Bitaxe not suitable, or is the voltage going out to the ASIC chip not suitable? And now we do have alerts. And later on, I also introduced that these alerts will be shown in the front end. We also do have a couple of self-test fixes. So this is more important to the manufacturers. If they do try to utilize this release, they will actually be able to test these devices before they do ship them out. That's the idea for the self-tests. There is also a remove from the BM1397 module by Mutatrum. So you do see, again, we removed old unnecessary code here, which is awesome. Still, the Bitaxe Max is supported. This was just a module that we have removed. There's also a fix when it comes to the naming scheme of the fan polarity, which I did, but it was not introduced by me. I need to thank Jason B1833 for introducing this. He made his first pull request, I believe, to the repository here, and I unfortunately closed it and then needed to open it up again, and therefore I mentioned him in the pull request because it's his idea of changing it. We also do now ensure that in the self-test we do have some sort of a timeout after a period amount of time. You should not be digging into the self-test, you should be able to go out there, which has been introduced by Adam Rest. Thanks for doing that. As well as we do have some test VRAC faults in the self-test as well. So again, I need to explain this here, guys. We're trying to make sure that everything is as smooth and as buttery, whatever, as possible here, from the manufacturing over to the update process, as well as the UI and UX for you as a user, and in general, the whole concept all around the Bitaxe. We're trying to make sure that all of these things are tied together and working really smooth and seamlessly. A cool new feature, which I will just show here, but not really read out loud, because I do hope that you guys see this in your new front end, is the pull request 735. Thanks to WantClue for doing that. The next thing is that we also expose the Wi-Fi error SSI to the API endpoint. So now you're able to pull from the API of the Bitaxe the strength of the Wi-Fi connection. Another new feature is that the power gauges and the voltage gauges have been updated to a variable, which makes sure that depending on the model you do use, your power gauges look better. So for example, the maximum for the Gamma is 40 watts, the maximum for the Super is 35 watts, for example. So now you don't have this progress bar where you do see the power consumption and it looks like you're just using half of it. Now it's a little bit more responsive and adapting to the device that you are using. As well as we do have the first couple of introductions into our new API, which is just currently written in a YAML file by Weird Robot, which is a good introduction into what we want to do with the API. So for anybody of you out there trying to make sure that you do have some sort of a software or feature for the Bitaxe, we are changing the API in the near future. And if you want to take a look into that and what we want to do, take a look in this pull request 736. There's also a new screen called the ASIC failure status screen introduced by WantClue, which is now a new screen that you do see on your Bitaxe if anything is going wrong with your ASIC chip. As well as we do have Mapio with a fix on Node.js and NPM, a bump up to the version 22, so that Node.js and NPM are actually capable of doing what they need to do. For example, building the front end, especially when you want to have the build process in a Dockerized environment. There's also another change when it comes to the TPS 546 get out, which is the I want to read the values for the current that I'm sending out of me, and this has been now combined because with the next release, the Bitaxe Gamma Turbo, so the next hardware release, we will see two different things there. We will have like two buck converters and we will have two chips on it, and therefore we need to make sure that you can read both of them and not just one, and that the power and the current that you're sending out there is as accurate as it can be on these devices. And last but not least, I fixed that if your device goes into a power fault because your power supply, for example, is not sufficient enough, or you have reached some sort of weird mode, or you're overheating or anything else, then you will no longer see the hash rate that you have achieved previously indefinitely. Now you will see power fault, check your power supply, there's no data available. So now you as a user do know, okay, something's going on and I need to fix something. Before we dive into the front end, I want to quickly go over the new contributors: TerraTech, Luke Jr., Stephen S. Martins, Dustin B., Weird Robot, and Mapio. Thank you guys for doing so. This is really amazing. As well as Jason B1833. Thank you for being here, and thank all of you for being new contributors to this project. This is just amazing. With that out of the way, let's jump over and let's take a look on the new front end. You do see this is looking a little bit different to the models or the versions that we had previously. One of the main features is the reworked menu bar that we do have on the left hand side. So with that, you now do see the power gauges here are a little bit different. If I would ramp up my Bitaxe now to, let's say, 35 watts or something like that, I would actually see it on this power meter here a little bit more accurate, because the top here is now somewhere else. You do also see the style has changed a little bit. In the previous release, I introduced a new color scheme, and with 261 it has been finalized to a better version. The pool section as well as the uptime section and the heat, they are basically the same, but they are really smooth and it just looks and feels a little bit more snappier. Let's hop over to Swarm and let's take a look on here. You do see we see different colors, and these colors are depending on the model that we do see down here. For example, we do have the Supra, which is this one here, as well as a couple other ones. If you do an automatic scan, it should actually check that I do have another device running in my system currently, or in my network, which is a Nerd QX Plus. And there we go, we have found it. It does have the orange because it's a multi-chip device, and we do see all the stats, which is just amazing. So let's hop over to network and introduce you to one of the coolest news features that we do have here. This is the page that you will see when you set up your Bitaxe for the very first time. And what you can do is you can click on these goggles or these magnifying glasses here, and it will do an automatic scan on near and local Wi-Fi networks, and it will also show you the signal strength to these networks. So this is really handy and helpful, at least I believe that. You can just click on it and then apply your Wi-Fi password, save and restart. When it comes to the pool section, they are now their entire own section. So you do see, you do have the Stratum host, you do have your username, basically it is your Bitaxe address, and you do have all the settings for the fallback. Everything is just now under the pool settings instead of everything in the settings. When it comes to customization, what you can do is you can change your color scheme. You can go into light mode. You can change the accent colors to whatever color you like. Basically, these 5 colors are currently available. Maybe in the future there will be more colors, but for now I do think it's decent. Let's switch back to dark. If you go over to settings, we do see something new here, and this is probably what most of you guys are interested in. We do have a new overclock functionality, and you do see this right away up here. And if you wonder why I do use it and why I do have these specific settings applied to my Bitaxe, well, you need to stay tuned for an upcoming video, because in there I will explain why I choose these values. So this has been reworked a little bit, and we do see we can still check on the releases, we can still check on the website, we can still update the firmware and the website, but now the website is to the left and the update firmware is to the right. So I hope that users will update the www.bin file first and afterwards go into esp-miner.bin, because the website can be updated really easily and it will just do a refresh of the page. But if you update the firmware first and then you try to instantly update the website, it might fail because the device is just rebooting and you're trying to update a device that is rebooting. That's not a good idea. So just use update website first and then go for update firmware. If you guys are interested in how you can actually achieve the overclock mode, it's basically pretty simple. Just go into your URL bar and type in $OC. This will make sure that you can put in whatever values you want in here, but you can also disable the overclock mode. If I go out there, I do see I have custom values in here, but if I would apply it again, it would actually show me that I do have the overclock capability. Now let's hop over to the logs. In here, everything stayed the same, and the coolest news feature is this. That's everything for the version 2.6.1. I thank everybody for tuning in here, and till then, keep hashing.